And in 2023, when me and my husband divorced, the decision was, because that home was adapted to support my son who has lifelong disabilities as a result of that injury that occurred to him, I took...
Hash the fall of Angela Rayner. How a £40,000 tax scandal brought down Labour's Deputy Prime Minister. Right then, if you haven't subscribed to UK Connors yet, now's the time, because what I'm about to tell you will absolutely floor you. We're witnessing the political earthquake that's just rocked Westminster to its very core, and frankly, it's been a long time coming. Angela Rayner has resigned. Not just stepped back, not taken a break, but completely thrown in the towel as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary after what can only be described as the most spectacular political implosion we've seen since the last Labour scandal. And here's the kicker. It all started with a seaside flat and £40,000 worth of unpaid stamp duty that's just brought the entire Labour hierarchy crashing down like a house of cards. Now, before we dive headfirst into this absolute mess, let me paint you the picture of just how catastrophic this is for Keir Starmer and Labour. We're talking about the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the woman who was supposed to be Starmer's right hand, his working-class champion, his connection to the grassroots, and she's just been caught with her hand in the proverbial cookie jar over a property deal that would make even the dodgiest estate agent blush. The timeline here is absolutely damning. Earlier this year, Rayner purchased a beachfront apartment in Hove, because apparently being housing secretary means you need to sample the property market firsthand. But here's where it gets interesting, and by interesting, I mean absolutely outrageous. She managed to underpay her stamp duty by a staggering £40,000. Not £40, not £400, but £40,000. That's more than most Britons earn in a year, just casually forgotten about when it came to paying her taxes. But wait, it gets better. When the story first broke, what was Starmer's response? Did he launch an immediate investigation? Did he demand transparency? No, he called it a smear campaign. On Monday, just days before her resignation, he was standing at the dispatch box defending her, claiming she'd done nothing wrong, that this was all just prejudice briefing against his working-class deputy. The optics couldn't be worse if they'd been scripted by Conservative Party headquarters. And if you think that's the end of it, think again, because hit that subscribe button now, because this story has more twists than a John le Carré novel. So, Laurie Magnus, the independent ethics advisor, the man whose entire job is to keep politicians honest, delivered his report to Downing Street today. And what did he find? That despite acting with integrity and showing exemplary commitment to public service, Rayner had fundamentally breached the ministerial code, the very code that's supposed to be the bedrock of political accountability in this country. Here's where the story gets absolutely farcical. Rayner's defense throughout this entire debacle has been that she was acting on professional advice. Two trust law specialists and a conveyancer, she claimed, had all signed off on the amount she paid. She was just following the guidance of qualified professionals. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Well, it would be if it were true. Thursday brought the most devastating blow to her credibility yet. Verico and Associates, the conveyancing firm she'd been throwing under the bus for weeks, came out swinging. Managing Director Joanna Verico didn't mince her words. They had never, and I repeat, never provided Rayner with tax advice. They are not qualified to do so, and they explicitly recommend clients seek specialist advice on these matters. In other words, Rayner had been using them as scapegoats of her own spectacular miscalculation. The small high street business in Herne Bay found themselves being blamed for a cabinet minister's tax affairs, and they weren't having any of it. Verico stated categorically that they'd simply filled out the stamp duty return based on figures and information provided by Rayner herself. The responsibility, the decision, the miscalculation, it all came from the Deputy Prime Minister's own office. Now, Conservative leader Kimi Badenoch wasted no time twisting the knife. Her statement was clinical in its precision. Angela Rayner is gone, but she wasn't sacked 3 days ago because Keir Starmer lacks leadership. Brutal, accurate, and exactly the kind of political ammunition that will haunt Labour for months to come. But here's what makes this entire saga so much more significant than just another political resignation. And make sure you're subscribed, because we'll be covering every development as it unfolds. This isn't just about Angela Rayner. This is about the fundamental integrity of a government that came to power promising to clean up Westminster. Starmer now faces the unenviable task of reshuffling his cabinet when he can least afford the distraction. He needs a new housing secretary, and sources suggest he'll likely have to reshuffle other positions as well. Although, interestingly, Chancellor Rachel Reeves appears to be staying put. One wonders what she makes of her colleague's financial arrangements. The political ramifications extend far beyond just filling ministerial positions. Rayner wasn't just Deputy Prime Minister. She was Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, a role she held independently of her government positions. Her resignation from both posts leaves Starmer not just administratively weakened, but politically isolated. The woman who was supposed to be his connection to Labour's traditional base, his working-class credentials personified, has become a liability he can no longer afford. What makes this particularly galling is the sheer scale of the mistake. We're not talking about a minor administrative error or genuine oversight. £40,000 in unpaid stamp duty represents either breathtaking incompetence or deliberate tax avoidance. Either way, it's completely unacceptable for someone in her position. The irony is absolutely delicious. Here's the housing secretary, the woman responsible for housing policy across the entire United Kingdom, who apparently couldn't navigate the basic tax obligations of buying her own property. It's like discovering the Chancellor doesn't know how to balance a checkbook, or finding out the Foreign Secretary can't locate France on a map. And let's talk about the property itself for a moment. A beachfront apartment in Hove. Not exactly the kind of purchase that screams woman of the people, is it? While families across the country are struggling with mortgage rates and housing costs, the housing secretary was snapping up seaside property and apparently trying to dodge the associated taxes. Starmer's handling of this crisis raises serious questions about his judgment and leadership. His initial response was to circle the wagons, to dismiss legitimate questions about his deputy's conduct as classist attacks. But when the ethics advisor's report landed on his desk, reality came crashing down. Sometimes a smear campaign is just the truth being inconvenient. The resignation letter itself is a masterclass in political damage limitation. Rayner expresses deep regret for not seeking additional specialist tax advice, given her complicated family situation role as housing secretary. She accepts complete accountability for her mistake and reiterates that her sole intention was to pay the appropriate amount. All very contrite, all very apologetic, but none of it changes the fundamental fact that she got it spectacularly wrong. Sir Keir's response strikes the right tone of gracious acceptance while trying to salvage something from wreckage. He acknowledges her integrity and commitment to public service, promises she'll remain a major figure in the party, and expresses confidence she'll continue fighting for her causes. But behind the diplomatic language, you can practically hear the sigh of relief from Downing Street. This scandal illuminates everything that's wrong with modern British politics. We have professional politicians who preach about fairness and contribution, while apparently playing by different rules themselves. We have a system where junior ministers resign over trivial matters while senior figures cling on despite serious breaches of conduct. And we have a media and opposition that's often more interested in point scoring than genuine accountability. But perhaps most damaging of all is what this says about Labour's return to power. They swept to victory promising competence, integrity, and a return to responsible government. Less than a year in, and we're already seeing the same old patterns of defensiveness, obfuscation, and ultimate capitulation when the facts become undeniable. The timing couldn't be worse for Labour. With economic challenges mounting, public services under pressure, and international crises demanding attention, the last thing they needed was a self-inflicted wound that calls into question their basic competence. Yet here we are, with the Deputy Prime Minister's career in ruins over what should have been a straightforward property transaction. What happens next will define Starmer's leadership more than any policy announcement or parliamentary performance. Can he rebuild his team effectively? Can he restore public confidence in his government's integrity? Can he demonstrate the decisive leadership that was so notably absent during the early stages of this crisis? The broader implications for British politics are equally significant. If Labour, the party of supposed fiscal responsibility and working-class values, can't handle basic tax obligations, what does that say about their ability to manage the nation's finances? If their deputy prime minister couldn't navigate property taxes, how can we trust them with complex economic policy? And let's not forget the human element in all this. Rayner may be resigning in disgrace, but she'll continue as an MP for Ashton-under-Lyne. Her constituent deserve better than a representative whose judgment on financial matters has been so thoroughly called into question. They elected someone they trusted to represent their interests, not someone who'd become a national embarrassment over tax avoidance. The Conservative Party, meanwhile, must be pinching themselves at this unexpected gift. Just when they needed a distraction from their own challenges, Labour has handed them the perfect stick with which to beat the government. Expect to see this scandal referenced in every future debate about taxation, housing policy, or political integrity. The Angela Rayner resignation represents more than just another political scout. It's a reminder that in British politics, competence still matters, integrity still counts, and accountability eventually catches up with everyone. It's also a stark warning to every other politician that in our interconnected, heavily scrutinized world, there's nowhere to hide from your mistakes. This story perfectly encapsulates everything that's fascinating and frustrating about British politics: the ambition, the miscalculation, the cover-up, and the ultimate reckoning. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist and turn in this ongoing political drama, make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors, because I guarantee you, this is far from over. The fall of Angela Rayner isn't just about one politician's career ending in scandal. It's about the fragility of political reputations, the importance of basic competence in government, and the reality that in modern British politics, eventually, the truth always surfaces. And when it does, the reckoning can be swift, brutal, and complete.